The FEMA Administrator Brock Long is joining us, Acting Homeland Security Secretary Elaine Duke. We hope to have her as well. We do as well. I want to thank you both for coming. I know it's been a crazy day. I want to get your sense of where things now stand, Secretary Duke, as to what the Texans in that area of destruction can do. If many of them have waited to leave, I would imagine that window has shrunk or gone.
The most important thing is to follow the instructions of the governor and the local governments. And they have put out clear instructions, and that is what every citizen should be following. At this time, it is shelter in place. All
right. Is FEMA ready for this, Director Long? I mean, is it your sense that this is obviously going to be a fairly catastrophic, just in terms of damage, potentially? How are you geared up for this?
Yeah, so we're definitely trying to set the expectations with citizens in Texas and Louisiana, working through our partners with each governor and the emergency management agencies. This is going to be a significant disaster. And so we have been, over the last 2 days, mobilizing equipment and resources, search and rescue teams, incident management teams, life-sustaining commodities, and they're already in the states, ready to go upon request from each one of our state partners.
You know, Secretary Duke, obviously the bigger concern, besides the awe-inspiring winds of this thing in excess of 120 miles an hour, the fact that it might hang around a while, that presents a host of other problems, right?
It does. Our big concerns are flooding and storm surge for the area.
So, Administrator, how do you deal with something like that? That sometimes some of the worst storms we've seen over the years, and this is the biggest one to hit this country in better than a dozen years, are those that hang around for a while. Sandy hung around for a while, Ariel, and some of these others. Is it your sense that will be the problem with this storm, just to deal with the ongoing onslaught of rain after rain? We're told now in excess of 3.5 feet at a minimum.
Right. So if you see behind us, this is the National Response Coordination Center, and these are the dedicated staff of FEMA and other members of the federal government. What we have to do is set the appropriate battle rhythm. As I said earlier, we have staged equipment, team, and personnel, but we know this is going to be a long, drawn-out event, and it's going to be very frustrating for many of the citizens that are facing this. When a storm doesn't have forward motion, there's a lot of uncertainty in the forecast. What we know is that this is a very dangerous storm. It's a Category 3, the first major storm that's going to impact the nation since 2005. But once it basically makes landfall, the model guidance is all over the place, and so therefore forecasters struggle with what it's going to do next. Any shift to the east or to the north, it could dramatically change the rainfall forecast that's currently there. And so what we don't want to do, while most of the attention is on Texas, we want to make sure that people are also heeding warnings in Louisiana. Governor John Bel Edwards and the parish presidents have been putting out guidance already, so we want to make sure that Louisiana doesn't lose focus of this event, even though Texas seems to be the bullseye right now.
Yeah, Louisianans know a thing or two about, minimum expectations out of the storm, and I'm sure after Katrina don't take any of these things lightly. But, I know you both had a chance to update the president, and maybe, Secretary, you can give me a sense of where he's coming from and what he has offered the governor of Texas, others in the region.
First of all, he has signed the declaration of major disaster, which allows Mr. Long here to go in with the full help of a Stafford Act declaration with FEMA and the other federal partners. He's also offered communications and continued support as the storm moves.
All right, Administrator, we also know that the president has indicated that he will be visiting Texas next week. Do we know at this point when or what his exact intentions are?
That'll be dictated by the storm. He will come when it's the appropriate time. Right now, what we're concerned about is the safety of the people there and making sure that we get our rescue operations done when the storm permits.
Administrator, you were going to say?
No, I was going to follow with Secretary Duke here. I mean, right now with the rainfall pattern over the next 5 days, we have to make sure that we're focused on the life safety mission, and the president understands that. So right now that schedule is not firm.
Administrator and Secretary, we know also as well that this is a very important energy neck of the woods, and so much of our refinery capacity, up to a quarter of it, natural gas as well, comes from the Gulf. I mean, as far as security is concerned, I imagine a concern for you as well, Secretary. A lot of these, the principals behind these rigs have shut them down or temporarily abandoned them. But if it looks like this could drag on a while, and for the better part of safety, they can't be remanned or reoccupied, this could drag on a week. The energy security comes up here, does it not?
Yes, part of our planning has been with the critical infrastructure of energy, and we are working very closely with them to ensure the security of those structures, as well as the flow of the resources we need to our country.
You know, the reason why I mentioned it as well, Secretary, I think it was Chevron that was indicating when it was shutting down temporarily some of its facilities in the area, didn't anticipate that it would be very long. I'm paraphrasing here, but the idea was that they would be back online and soon. Are you of that opinion, or could this be something that lasts a while?
You know, I think one thing we can all agree on is we can't predict what Mother Nature will do. We will decide that after the storm makes landfall, and whether it weakens or redirects once it makes landfall. That will drive safety and security are our number 1 and 2 concerns. You know,
it's interesting, Administrator Brock Long, you can help me with this. You know, it's always a concern. Maybe it came up during Katrina. It's come up in another national instance. You could even go back to 9/11, where not all the agencies are on the same page or communicating with one another. It's understandable in the middle of a crisis, and different political parties and mayors and governors and all. Are you all in sync on this?
Absolutely. It is very clear how we are running this disaster in support of our state and local partners. Look, emergency management and disaster response and recovery is a partnership. It's a partnership at the different levels of government. You know, all disasters begin and end at the local level. Once their capacity has been exceeded, the states, you know, provide their resources, and in this situation, you know, the governor of Texas has asked for an emergency disaster declaration, a major disaster declaration, and now we stand by to support. So not only is it a partnership at those 3 levels of government, but it's a partnership, as you can see behind me, within the federal government as well. And we have a multitude of agencies, and it's my job to coordinate those agencies in a uniform measure and putting it down to the incident command level, ultimately to help our state and local partners.
You know, folks, I had mentioned Katrina before, and there was the surprise of water levees that couldn't handle the sudden surge of water. There's also expected to be at least a 15-foot surge of water from this particular storm. I don't know who's right and what the latest figures are, but that could be a very big issue for the Louisiana area and elsewhere. I mean, how much is it your sense that they're prepared for that possibility, Secretary?
We have been talking with the governor of Louisiana also about preparations in case the storm redirects. Flooding is their major concern also, and we are supporting their preparedness for this storm.
You know, when they're told, and that is residents in the affected areas, folks are told to leave or get out of town, how far should they go? For example, if you're in the Galveston area, in the Corpus Christi area, in the Houston area, I mean, how far inland should they go?
So first of all, anytime, you know, particularly in Texas and both Louisiana, the local jurisdictions are in charge of issuing the warning order. So anytime, what we want to do is make sure that citizens, one, if you live there or you're visiting there, you understand the vulnerability to storm surge, because storm surge is the primary driver of all evacuation movement. So the goal is get out of the storm surge zone and into a facility that can withstand the winds. In many cases, you don't have to go hundreds of miles. You know, ultimately, I think as a nation, we need to reconfigure some evacuation plans and look at how we can shorten distances for people to travel and seek safe refuge.
You know, I was thinking of the ones who don't listen, right? And in every storm you have that, right? Including these Gavones who I was noticing were like surfing or near the water or taking selfies near the water. What do you say to those folks, Secretary?
Well, I think it's important that everyone act responsibly, and it's important to evacuate the area, not only for their safety, but concerned about the people that will respond after a devastating storm to assist them. We do have shelters open for those that need shelters, thanks to our not-for-profit partners, including American Red Cross. So there are facilities available, and I encourage, as the governor and the local officials have, for people to heed their warnings.
You know, Administrator, I also found out this is so far, you know, early, obviously, in the hurricane storm season, but it's expected to be a busy one. I don't know whether this particular storm telegraphs that, but there, you know, I've talked to a number of people from some of these weather centers and hurricane centers who look at the number of big storms, some anticipating as many as 17 storms, not all hurricanes, but named either tropical or hurricane storms. Are you in that camp that says it's going to be that busy? And if so, what do you do to prepare for the next one or the one after that?
Well, yeah, so we anticipate an active hurricane season, but regardless of how many storms are predicted, it only takes one. And so, you know, right now the 50-meter target is obviously, you know, Hurricane Harvey. But, you know, we know in the back of our minds that the height of hurricane season is basically September 10th. So we got a long way to go. We've seen very active years. For example, the 2004 hurricane season, the nation saw 4 major hurricane strikes in basically a 6 to 7 week period. So the folks here at FEMA and within the Department of Homeland Security understand, you know, what we're dealing with. We know it's early in the season. We got a long way to go, but we are definitely prepared.
You know, as soon as you guys take over, then you have a heck of a job on your hands. We appreciate you both taking the time to chat with us. Be well yourselves. The FEMA Administrator Brock Long and the DHS Acting Secretary Elaine Duke. We are focusing not only what they're saying, but